Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 242. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 20th of the 6th month in the year of our Lord 2023. Hey, Roni over there on TikTok. Yeah, if you're viewing this on Instagram, hit that like button. If you're viewing this on TikTok, double tap that screen, hit that like button. That's how you like that video over there on TikTok. And the likes do help. They send out the notifications to everyone else. Yes, I'm aware of the time, Rooney. I am aware. We have drifted a bit of a distance from the punctual time of 9:30, and yes, we started at a delay, but we are here nonetheless. Good evening, Scafty. If you are viewing this on repeat over on YouTube or live over on YouTube, also make sure you hit that like button. Do hit that like button. It would be much appreciated. It helps, as I said, with the algorithm, sending it out there. You could also share the video, send it out to people, tell them, hey, take this in. This is some good stuff. Good content. Stuff to listen to. All right. So we're starting off today talking about our good old bookstore that seems to have taken local Trini internet by storm. You know, if I were to make an assumption about Trini internet right now, I'd say Trini Twitter is building a fan page, maybe even a shrine to RIK. Because Trini Twitter tends to be on the further end of being liberal and progressive in their worldview. Trini Facebook is ready with the pitchforks and torches, because that's where the tanties are. That's where the tanties are. That's where the uncles are. That's where your grandmother, your uncle, your nan, and all of them, they're in the repository of Facebook. They're waiting to burn things down. They aren't having it. Trini Instagram doesn't really care. That's the youth. They don't care. They're still posting their thirst traps. Maybe those Instagram mothers who are scrolling, they're more into it. TikTok, well, they're just looking to the fame angle of it. Who could speak about it and get the most views? What we could see about it to catch on to some of the bacchanal wave and hopefully get a nice little viral video out of that. That's the TikTok of it. Well, what is it that we are speaking about here is a book in one of our preeminent bookstores in Trinidad and Tobago that represented the LGBTQIAA2+ community, apparently to children. Now, I would like to tell parents, anyone listening to this, and parents in specific, from the jump, do not let anyone gaslight you. Gaslighting is when they're basically lying to you, making you believe that what you're seeing is not what you're seeing. Roni, there are more letters. The plus kind of includes most of them. This isn't about letting people live their life the way they want to live their life and love who they want to love. That is irrelevant in this matter. Bear in mind, the LGBTQIAA2+ community, the significance of that community is about someone's sexuality. It's not about who they love. It's about your sexuality, who you have adult relations with. That's the crux of the matter. Really, that's the crux of the matter. What place has your choice in sexuality in children's learning? And do not let anyone gaslight you to make you believe that because you disagree that children should not be being exposed to ideologies that lean in one way or the other, that somehow that makes you a bigot and you hate people and you don't want people to live their lives. Listen, you could live your life whole day, every day till you die and never write a book about it, and never write a children's book about it. It's not even an adult book, it's a children's book. And when the books, and the thing is, while some people make it seem like it's about one book. I think many of the people who are legitimately upset are aware of the situation in the Western world as it currently is, where there are many books as such attempting to bring this to children, and many parents are rightfully up in arms about this. What place does sexuality have in a child's education, coming from a school or a state or any other person? And by rainbowizing what is sexuality, here's the dishonesty that happens here. They make it seem to children that all this is about is colors and sparkles. But that's not what this group is about. I mean, if you are about living your freest life, well, live your freest life. But don't lie to children and make them seem that all we are about is painting colors and dancing happily and singing. No, that's dishonest. That's dishonest. That to me is the issue. The fact that it's a children's book. And you could buy a book or you could not buy a book. Yes, I know what the A in LGBTQIAA2+ stands for. But here's the thing. Although that stands for asexual, meaning not wanting sex, it still has to do with sexuality. It's pertaining to sexuality. And I kind of ignore many of the other letters, to be very honest with you, because as it is, Q is supposed to be an all-encompassing letter. Q is supposed to include everything inside of the community. So I mean, everyone could call themselves Q and just forget about it. And people are saying, well, you know, you could buy a book, you could not buy a book, it's up to you. And I agree, it's up to whoever buys the book. But then in my understanding of this, I'm wondering, why is there a counter upset movement? If you are saying, well, parents are free to buy the book or not buy the book if they want, then why are you upset with them for saying they're not going to buy the book? That's exactly what they're saying. Many parents out there are saying they're not going to buy the book. And it is an unnatural thing. In terms of normal, not unnatural, it is against the norm. It's not normal. It is a minority movement, obviously. That's not taking credence away from anything. It's just literally the fact of it. So it's up to parents. It is, as it should be. King Matthew says this is our population control, so making this normal would be the agenda of the world government. Kuvon says, how is asexuality in a young, healthy person not a kind of dysfunction? It is. It is a kind of dysfunction. Listen, if any person in the live is part of the community and would like to discuss this with me, I'm all open for a discussion because I have a lot of questions. To me, the L and the G are counterintuitive to the T. The initial, like, I don't know if people forget or if my memory just works too good. The initial movement of LNG has always been around. This isn't something new. It's always been around. LNG, lesbian, gay, the movement pushed the born this way. I don't know how many of you remember that song from Lady Gaga, something, I was born this way. And okay, you see, the idea being, you can't be angry with someone or tell them they're doing something wrong. If they were just born that way, that's who they were born being attracted to. But that kind of already throws in, when you throw in the B into that, it kind of already throws a little wrench in the system. Like, okay, you're born being attracted to male or female, but also you could be born being attracted to both. You're born that way? Are you sure? Is that a choice? Okay. And then, when you reach to the T, that say basically I could be born in a male body but actually I am a woman, then what are you attracted to when you are a L or G? When you're born this way, you're born being attracted to a man or woman. What are you attracted to? The physical appearance of the man or woman, or the mystical essence of man or woman that we talk about in transgenderism? I don't know. I'd really like some of these questions answered. There are enough issues in the education system. Adding this agenda spells disaster. This isn't what education is supposed to be about. And again, with giving you all confidence not to be gaslit, sexual education in schools is a hoax, or otherwise known as a hoax. Sex ed. Do not let someone tell you, well, this is, you see, what wrong in Trinidad and Tobago, and I've seen this view too. What's wrong in Trinidad and Tobago? We desperately need sexual education in Trinidad and Tobago. We are a backward nation when it comes to education about sexual issues, and that's the reason you have all of this impropriety in our society. Now, this takes an erroneous assumption at the very jump. First off, this says that you could teach people and educate people out of sexual deviance. That's not true. Otherwise, all of the most educated people would have been all of the nicest, most pure, well-behaved people in society. And that's not true. So you cannot educate someone into behaving properly sexually. Then there's the other problem of, what do you mean properly? I don't think anybody chooses to be anything but what people deems as I'm not sure you're responding an accurate way. What is a woman after the right? Okay. You threw off my train of thought right there. There are enough issues adding this agenda spells disaster. Yeah. Where what? It good for all your vote PNM again. Rudy Nanan. If you're talking PNM and UNC inside of this issue, I really don't think you want to speak about that. There's a certain MP. And I mean, you see, that to me shows, like, when people speak about Trinidad as being so backward in terms of how we approach these issues, I don't think that's true. We have many people in prominent parts in our society that are clearly, obviously, doing what they want. We have a DPP. We have a DPP being alleged in some real kind of funny stuff, including criminal activity, and that's our DPP. So I won't go down that road in terms of politics. But yes, sex ed is where I was. If we go back to the origin of sexual education, is about safety and healthcare, emotional. Yes, I'm glad you're here, little Miss Mediator, because I'm sure you may, if you've done mediation, you would have very likely learned some sexual education. And go back to the origins of sexual education. The founder of sexual education, sex ed in schools, the program, was a director of Planned Parenthood. Now, you could agree with Planned Parenthood's view of humanity and eugenics and their view of being able to edit the bad people out of humanity. You could agree with that view, but you must understand that is an ideology that not necessarily everyone must agree with. And if you have an organization that believes they should control how much people are born and that they should be saying who should give birth or not, you give them control of educating children on sexuality. Are you going to have just a straight education? All right, that's one. Next is one of the fathers of gender theory and in extension sexual education. His name is on one of the preeminent gender research and sexual education research institutes in the world, the Kinsey Institute. Go research whom Dr. was it Alfred Kinsey was. Go research Kinsey and see the depraved, insane, sick pervert that was the founder of gender theories, and is the quote behind a significant portion of the literature in sexual education. It was founded at the core by sick people. The German guy with the funny mustache would be a big fan of Planned Parenthood. They were a big fan of him in the beginning too. Don't forget German guy with funny mustache was Times Man of the Year. Before he started obviously going off the deep end, he was Times Man of the Year. You saw the movie What Is a Woman? Yes, I did. Yeah, So sex ed in and of itself, at the genesis, was created by some sick people. I spoke about this just last week, where you go into gender theory, into queer theory, and the belief that those theorists have, they have it at, you could go and read the books, you could go and read their papers. This isn't a secret that they were hiding, they were writing about this. All of the originators of gender theory in France were pedophiles that lobbied the French government to drop the age of consent down to 0. One quote from one of the preeminent gender theorists of that time was that once a child is able to choose which crayons they color with, they're able to choose. These are sick people. Sick. And do not be gaslit into believing that somehow, because some of these sick people got into areas of power and prominence and got to quote and name their body of work inside of sexual education, that somehow this is a positive thing. Well, RL, Mindful Education has your solution for this. We offer those homeschool private style classes, and we are having a camp running for this early July-August vacation, a Java education camp every day of the week. If you're interested, hit us up, sign up over on our Instagram. You'd find the phone numbers there. The fact that I regularly have to explain menstrual cycle to adults is insane. I totally agree, Little Miss Mediator. Listen, I 100% agree. I am a biology teacher. That's my primary subject that I've taught for most of my teaching, biology. And the thing is, you don't need sex ed to teach this biology. That is straight, simple biology. And the problem is that many people do not teach this biology. And I agree that's a problem. I agree. It should be something that is taught much more regularly. 100% agreement from me there. That when I'm criticizing sexual education, I'm not criticizing actually educating children about body parts and about factual matters. That's not what I'm criticizing. I'm criticizing the fact that they're saying that's what they want to do, and their ideologies at the base of what they're attempting to teach these children under that name. Let me hear what you're saying there, positive. Jump in for 2 minutes. What's up, bro? How did you start?
Big up mindful education all the ways, all the times, every time. But I'm glad that Miss Mediator brought up that topic. One of the things I used to always figure out is why when Johnson and these teams, this is in my primary school days, doing these training programs with these young ladies on the menstrual cycle and how to use the sanitary napkins and so on, why they used to always put the boys out. Oh yeah, the boys in a separate class. I said, that don't make sense, do, because we could get wife, we could get daughters. So why we used to get put out? And then later on in life, we want you to learn about it. When you done seen a stab one or something with a really business about it. I said, I just wanted to throw that in there to see how that conversation would go. Why at the primary school level, when Johnson used to come around, I had a classmate. When him at the time, I said, boy, this is the man who open the party and come back in the boys, the class where the boys was. And we had so much fun off of it, just talking kicks. But what I'm thinking is, if these guys learn these things at a more younger age, I think they would treat women a lot different, and they would value women a lot more in those regards. I'm just saying.
All right. The thing is, positive, I don't necessarily agree with you there, bro. I don't necessarily agree that, you see, the idea that you could teach morality into someone through education, I greatly disagree with that idea. Like the idea that if if there are social ills out there, that what we need is to educate people. That's a modern thinking that I think is wrong. And the assumption at the base of it is wrong, that you could educate people out of moral conundrums. People do immoral things because they are immoral people. That's not within the realm of law and rules. That's within the realm of morality, of right and wrong, of evil and good. So I don't think you educating people necessarily would stop them from being bad if they're bad, but I do think education is necessary to help people to more practically be good if they want to be good. So I agree that you should teach, and I remember I used to wonder that at that age, because I knew at that age, I was like, why are you putting me out of the room? I already know all of this stuff. But I could understand, not in the context of not teaching the boys, but in the context of comfortably teaching the girls. And it is something that is personal and private, and you don't necessarily want to be talking about private business to the girls while they're in the open view of laughing, giggling boys and all of that. It just may not make an ideal situation. You know, no, I'm not I'm not gonna crucify you. Positive. My memory of that back in primary school in the 90s was, that's what happened. If I recall correctly, in my primary school, they called the girls in to speak about what would happen to their bodies as they reach of a certain age, and they came and they told the boys, etc., and you're gonna grow here and da. And yeah, I agree, you should have those things, but my view of that is biology. That's not sex ed. To me, sex ed, because you see, sex ed goes into a morality realm. From the time you go into how you deal with sexuality, that's a morality realm. And to me, that is the domain of family and religion. That's the domain of that. That's where that should be left.
For me that way, and this is why I can share the experience, because I'm sure if I call some of my primary school colleagues and my primary school partners, we could share for you vividly some of the experiences, because most times you'll be in class doing absolutely nothing during those sessions. And them guys will come with you just to be in the classroom, just to make mischief. Will explain almost everything to us walking home in the evening. Just after the exercise, sometimes you say some of the exact same things that we went on, because we had a relationship with the young ladies in our classroom at that time.
Well,
some of them girls liking boys and troubling boys.
Positive.
Them girls don't run down boys more than anything else.
I feel we'd have to go back to your teacher back in that day and blame them, because I'm telling you, my experience, and for most of the people that I've heard speak about that in Trinidad, and like, people would call us backward, but I think that is a good thing. You talk to the girls, you talk to the boys, you give them the raw biology of it, and you leave the rest up to parents. Like, yes, there are some parents who will not tell their children wisely. True. What's the solution to that? That we allow the state then to control the sexual morality of children? We don't want to go down that road, really and truly. We really don't. Sid says, oh, so what are your thoughts on moral education? I think moral education should be left to religious bodies. That's the expertise of religious bodies. I've said this before. And I understand it's a dilemma, because all laws are based in morality to some extent, because you have to decide what's right or wrong, and yes, so there's a core moral base. But to me, the day-to-day intricacies of morality is what is left in the realm of the religious. That's literally what religious institutions, religious bodies, religions have been arguing about, reasoning about, debating about for thousands of years. Sometimes you see some people come with some moral quandaries, like if it's a new thought, and if you've read enough religious texts, there have been some people wondering about those same thoughts about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. So it's not something new. I think those are better left in that realm. That's why I am not against the religious boards being in control of education in Trinidad and Tobago. where there is a side of religious education in that. Some people act like religion and science religion and fact religion and studies go against each other, but that's not true. In most cases, universities were born out of religious institutions. They were born out of the monastery. Science was born out of religion. The pursuit of truth in a religious context was what was the foundation of science, as we so call it. All of the initial scientists were religious people, so it's not something that cannot coexist together. It has been that way since time. So what happens when religious bodies and families fall? Well, little Miss Mediator, your society falls. If your families fall, your society falls. What governs your society is the family. The reason we are seeing societal failure at the level we are seeing it currently in Trinidad is because in some communities, the family is failing. In the communities that are worst off, the reason for the most part is because the families are failing. And as the families fail, the communities crumble. So what we do is build up the families. There's no alternative to family. Family is the base structure. That's what we do. If they fall, we fall. That's how it is. It's like asking, what do you do if your heart stops beating? Well, your blood stops pumping. We try to make sure your heart doesn't stop beating. We try to make sure your heart doesn't stop beating, or if it stops, we try to get it to start back ASAP.
Listen, question again.
Yeah, positive.
Sorry, I'm not too sure how true this is, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an allegation that there was some training conducted among police officers indicating that they have to start to use people by their preferred pronouns. Is that true, yes or no? And if it is allegedly, how do you think that would work out in our current society, where we know we have some very serious law enforcement officers?
Let me answer first. I don't know. That's my answer on that. I don't know. If that is happening, it's happening. Yeah, ask your question, JR. It's happening pretty on the low. So I don't know. I would lean to the side of no, because I don't think you would get the TTPS Trinidad has laws against cussing people. Our police cuss people. You think you're going to get them to address you by your preferred pronoun? Good luck getting them to address you by your name sometimes if it's the wrong police. And I know it's not all police, I know. But, I don't think that's something that we're going to see from our police per se. I made a post. I think that was night before when I saw that was even before the RIK thing, I think. When I saw some of this thing up and I said, Trinidad doesn't have enough wealthy white mothers for this to work. And I kind of stand by that. Because at the end of the day, most of the worry about this has to do with the children. Adults do what adults do, that's adults' business, that's their business. They're big people. It has to do with the children. And what you're willing to accept around your children. And to me, from my looking around into the world, the wealthy white liberal woman, there's the awfuls, affluent white female liberal, AWFL, they're generally the most accommodating to those more out there views when it comes to their children and their family. If you look at ethnic parents, by and large, you do not see that. And Trinidad is basically only ethnic parents. Ethnic parents want you to give them grandbabies. They're looking to carry on the progeny. Yeah. Son, when you go married, so with a significant portion of those parents around, I'm not sure how you'd be able to push that in a country like Trinidad and Tobago, at least at this level. I'm not sure. I mean, things happen. Who knows? You and your 4 wives. Who knows? Things happen. But I just don't think it's something that would Yes, obviously slowly. Obviously slowly it does seep in and it would seep in. But if you look at how these, like in the United States, the reason that seeped in more into the United States was through their education system. Their education system educated young people into this. So I was speaking about this video the last Friday, I think it was. There's a video on YouTube where Man versus Street. You could go and look at it if you have time. Where they ask college students and then they ask people in the ghetto, would you date a trans person? And the college students all say yes, of course, of course, of course. And the people in the hood all say no. And you see very clearly where a lot of this comes from, through education. And in the United States right now, they're having a revolt because of that, of the education system. Homeschooling has increased something like a couple 100% in the last couple of years. The people are getting very serious about that because they recognize I can't trust what the education system is teaching my child. And the thing is, in Trinidad and Tobago, education system is not run as top down from state agencies as it is in the United States, where they have the federal Secretary of Education, Department of Education. That's not how our education system is necessarily run. We have the Concordat, and I was speaking about this, the fact that the present government is currently in a bit of friction over the Concordat with some of these religious boards. They seem to be trying to weaken that Concordat, but what that Concordat does is it gives a kind of separation to allow a separation of church and state and allow the church to control some of the education. And the state controls some of the education, but the church also has control over some. And by church, I mean religious organization in general. They're trying the same thing here. Let people teach their children what they want. If you don't have none, no need to push further. RL says, you see, Western countries have discrimination laws, so they have to answer like that. Curve one says, and Democrats are against the homeschooling. Of course they are. Richard says, they're really targeting schools. Yep. It's the easiest place to normalize that behavior. JR says, I know they're going to be smart when you done. JR, you're thinking of coming to learn in mindful education?
Listen, I'm thinking of moving to Trinidad and sending my children to mindful education when they open a compound. And have a nice facility.
I don't mind, bro. I don't mind. That's kind of my aim. You see, here's the thing. I aim to homeschool my child and my children as they come. So either way, I'm going to be teaching them. So whether the classes are there or not, the teaching is going to be occurring. Marilyn St. Clair, I saw you there. What's up? All right, okay. All right. It's a Monday, you know, folks. It's not exactly Talk Tuesdays. Nathan, you're going to have to teach my 8 kids, bro. 8, that's not a problem. All of them. Good night. I think you'd have to be muted there. But yeah. It's Monday night, so there's actually, sorry, Tuesday night. What am I saying? It's Tuesday night. What am I saying? Sorry, people. Sorry, it's Tuesday. So we have other stories to get into, you know. We have others. Let me just dive into one more story other than the modernist people and their views. One more story. It's Friday for me, Rooney says. Wow. How your weekend start already, Rooney? Well, the Labor Day was yesterday, and I saw our labor unions out in their numbers, and there was one particular statement they made that really, you know, it stuck with me. This article I'm reading here. $30 an hour. Yep, $30 an hour. A $30 minimum wage. This was the call yesterday from the joint trade union movement, which demanded that the minimum wage be increased from $17.50 to $30 an hour. JTAM leader and President General of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, Ansel Roger, speaking during the Labor Day activities at Charlie King Junction, Faizabad, yesterday said nobody in the country should be working for less than $30 an hour. I always want to ask people when they say things like this, why not 100 an hour? Why not 1,000 an hour?
Well, that's true. That's true. Like how I don't understand how the conception of a minimum wage kind of works. Like I've always had this dilemma between, because Americans love to talk about minimum wage, and like, okay, you raise the minimum wage, right? How is that about to sort of make your life any much easier when they raise minimum wage on you and then raise cost of living higher than you? So,
bro,
and this is
with that, I think a lot of people miss the understanding of what money is. Money isn't the value. Money is representative of a value. They could pay you any number. Your check could have any number written on it. They could give you any stack of bills. That's not what is important. What is important is the goods that you can exchange for these bills. And
exactly.
Changing minimum wage does not change in the economy the amount of goods your services are worth. So here's what I mean. By and large, if, let's go, and you all know I like to go back to farming. I like to go back to farming, down to the bottom. If you're a mechanic, when you change my oil, I think it's worth 10 watermelon. I'm a watermelon farmer. 10 watermelons is what you get for changing my oil. 10 watermelons might be worth $30 per watermelon. 10 by 3, $300. So you could think that your worth is $300. But if someday you decide that, you know what, I want to be paid $5,000, would I be able to go in my watermelon farm and take out that many melons to give you in exchange for changing my oil? It just won't work like that. It just won't. Because the resources that are created in the system aren't increasing. It's the same amount of resources in the system. I saw someone say that they believe minimum wage is there so that the people won't be extorted. And I don't understand how that stops people from being extorted. Here's the thing. Minimum wage doesn't make employers pay you more. The majority of workers are not paid minimum wage. Think about that for a moment. The majority of workers in this country are not paid minimum wage. If minimum wage is needed to make employers pay you properly, why is it that employers pay the majority of people more than minimum wage? Why? Because we are positive. Go ahead.
They pay by how much? Because I used to work for a company that if the minimum wage is $24, they would pay you $24.25 or $24.50 and just stay out of the minimum wage bracket. And when you look at the security that goes with being a minimum wage worker as compared to being a minimum contracting worker, 25 cents outside of the minimum wage bracket, it don't really make sense. Because a minimum wage worker would be entitled to the 2 weeks vacation per not per year, but according to how your contract is. But I would normally, when I work with them for 1 year, I only was entitled to 7 days vacation, and I couldn't do nothing about it because I was just outside of the minimum wage bracket. If I was in the minimum wage bracket, I would have a lot more security covering the way I operate and the benefits.
Right, but even still, the majority of workers aren't even just outside the minimum wage bracket. Why is that? Because if I am an employer, and this is where unions came in. If I am an employer, I employ tutors and teachers. And the tutors and teachers that work for me, I pay them X amount. If I need them to teach some of the classes that I am unable to teach because there's one of me and I need assistance in that realm. If I don't pay them that much, they go somewhere else that will pay them that much. And the union is able to get all of them together so they all know this, so they could come to me and say, hey, if we don't get paid X, we could go get more in another place. Right. Majority of informal workers, RL says. And I think informal workers have the same thing. They have the same thing. Many informal workers, once in industries that are unregulated, the movement is actually more. The movement is actually more. So in the scrap iron industry, I hung around the scrap iron industry even before the regulation, when it was the wild, wild west of scrap iron. And you'd see scrap iron guys, they aren't beholden to any one yard. They're going to which yard they get the better treatment by. This yard, I hear this yard giving a 25 cents more. And their industry is unregulated. They're at the bottom of society, literally picking up these scraps and trying to sell it back. And they're able to work their labor based on who would be willing to pay them more. The problem with minimum wage is it locks employers into a number. It locks employers into a number, whereas the minimum wage really and truly is zero. I may have been able to employ 10 more people that would have been willing to work for less than minimum wage and gain the experience to go on to increased over minimum wage jobs. But no, instead, they remain unemployed, inexperienced, and their first experience has to be at a minimum wage job, which is a cruel job because the employer is attempting to get maximum work out of you, but he isn't treating you that well because you're at the bottom nonetheless. By that minimum wage keeps deleting apprenticeship. Minimum wage keeps deleting the apprenticeship style of work that we had. That ability to creep into the job world, where at one point you may have been unpaid inside of this place, or they're just paying you $30 to sweep up the yard because you're not doing much. Are you going to tell them, well, if you employ him now you have to pay him $30 an hour? So all they'll say is, we'll get someone else to sweep the yard.
Exactly. It's like
Go ahead, Otep. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's sort of the same concept of how Americans talk about, well, the immigrants coming and stealing the jobs. I mean, listen, the immigrants coming and doing the work. Like, obviously, employers of companies will want somebody to do the work, and if they beholden to a minimum wage, they will obviously try to get out of the minimum wage as much as possible. Now, I don't disagree with the whole apprenticeship thing. Like, I believe how the system kind of operates now is kind of ridiculous. That they want to have a maximum degree and maximum experience on top of that too, and then want to beholden to a minimum wage. That sounds ridiculous, but it's like, to me, listen. Scrap minimum wage, let the market decide on how much to pay and how we would, climb the ladder, so to say, on the whole job market thing. Let's do that. And then, because you will keep increasing the minimum wage until like 2050, it's like $180 an hour, and now all you feel making big money because they're looking down like 2019 and 17.
And Hotep, let's think about that reasonably. As I was saying with the watermelons, resources are resources. Think of minimum wage. Minimum wage is $17.50. Think of minimum wage as the price of a kiss bread. When minimum wage was $10, the kiss bread was $10. When minimum wage was $9, it was $9. When it was $7, it was $7. As minimum wage raises to $30, the kiss bread is going to be $30. What you are doing is just increasing the numerical value or numerical worth on something, but it isn't really changing much. And who that really hurts are the people whose numbers cannot change as easily. You see, for a businessman, as you change salaries all around the country, He just changes the numbers on his business. But if you are an employee somewhere, and remember, all the numbers won't change the same time. Let's say you're an employee somewhere, they're increasing those numbers and inflation is running up there, and inflation is increasing at this rate, and your salary is increasing at this rate. What is happening there is you have a rope around your neck, you have a noose, and it's tied to a tree, and you're on an escalator going down. The escalator keeps going down slowly, and you're hanging slower and slower. Eventually, you'll die. People who are hiring people, how much do you pay someone for a day work now? Paying a Trini, that is. It's according to what you're hiring them for. If you're talking about just pure labor, full day might be 200 to 250. If you're talking construction labor, that's 300 generally speaking. If you're talking skilled labor in construction, that's 350 going up the road there. Michelle Sudan, just saying good night, heading to bed now. Have a great night. Have a great night. You too, Michelle. Have a great night. Roni, what's up?
Hi, everybody. Good night. About this, I thought we lived in a free market. Like, what happened to all these free market things? What happened? The union is all these unionized things. Taxi drivers shouldn't have a union. Banks shouldn't have a union. Well, the public service, what are you gonna say? They need a union.
Roni, the road you going down there, girl, I fully agree. I was saying today, I believe unions are obsolete. I think a WhatsApp group replaces a union in present day. Unions were made and at the change of the century. For one, they were formed out of Marxism. That's one. But okay, they had a use, but that was at the change of the century. When communication was difficult. The aim of a union is for all of the workers in this business to be able to communicate and come to a decision together. We don't need to pay a union leader $20, $30, $40, $50,000 for that anymore. A WhatsApp group, we shoot out a message, hey people, they say so and so and so and so and so. But all right. Yeah. How the unions go get the due? Roni, you were saying I cut you across, Roni. Roni, I cut you across. My apologies.
So I was just saying it basically violates the rules of a free market when you have somebody setting the price for everything, right? If we have if taxi drivers was operated in this quote unquote free market, right? A man might be able to put in CNG in his car and charge everybody $3 to go down. And you could run up and down with your diesel and charge people $10. People will just stand up and wait for the $3 person. You understand? And then that would force more people into doing stuff that would make more sense. But instead we decided.
Roni, what you're saying there, Roni, is the crux of the difference between the Marxist view and the free market view, and why the free market will creates innovation at an amazing rate. Because innovation is how you make, it's how you stand out in the free market. If those taxi drivers were actually running on a free market kind of business, the kind of difference we'd have seen in the taxi service by now. Like, the only reason you could still have taxis out there with no air condition is because they were not running on a real free market. Like, bro, you cannot have a no AC vehicle and charge me the same price. It cannot be so. It cannot be so. But you're forced to do that. You're forced to do that because of the system. Listen, anytime I hear Supermarkets Association, I'm like, oh no. Anytime I hear any kind of association, I'm like, kind of, oh no, because it's a cartel they're making there.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? To me, as the world stands right now, there's barely a free market, right? Like, America is the only country that flirts with the idea of free market because it used to be. Then there no longer is because, they just print money like wild people and they do that kind of nonsense. But so, free market is what we would want the world to get back to in a sort of sense, because currently that's not what it is, right? Because look at this for real. How you could have your dilapidated car on the road, right? No AC, and still want to charge me $20 to go San Fernando? I don't see the sense in that per se. But and to RL, I don't really believe free market is supposed to make things necessarily cheaper. It's supposed to sort of make the goods and services in your society sort of a one-for-one kind of thing. Because here's the thing, right? Scrap minimum wage. If people say that if you don't pay people minimum wage, companies will just pay people no money, basically slavery. No, that's not true. Because companies, exactly, nobody wouldn't work, and then companies who make goods and services, they wouldn't get any value on it. So obviously they would have to pay people regardless of minimum wage or not, because companies want people to maximize their income in order to circulate dollars in the market.
Correct. Companies.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, apart from that, if you by removing minimum wage and paying people for their efforts, you'll get people to work harder. You'll get people to do more, because they'll be like, oh shucks, incentive. Let me work. Let me achieve more so that I could get more pay. Instead, if you make the same amount whether you do it or you don't do it, you'll end up with the public service.
Listen. That's literally it, Rooney. I always talk about it, the incentive structure. The incentive structure should be to work. You want to incentivize people to do more work. If you do more work, you get better out of it. If the idea is that I do more work and I get the same, then I'm not going to do more. I'm not going to push more. How are you going to incentivize anything more? Another story I'm going to jump to here. Listen to this. This is another thing I found a bit strange reading through some of the news today. Another story that, and I understand the dilemma that the government is in, but taking this, residents warned against unapproved repair works. The Ministry of Works and Transport yesterday asked Woodland residents to refrain from undertaking unsanctioned repair works in the area. On Sunday, residents affected by recent flooding in Woodland took it upon themselves to fix a breach in the bank of the South Oropouche River. The ministry said it empathizes with the flood victims and understands the frustration and anxiety of residents, but members of the community are strongly advised to refrain from engaging in any unsanctioned repair works, as an unapproved plan is likely to cause accelerated deterioration and can increase flooding in the area.
Very interesting.
Here's the thing. I understand 100% what the government is saying. If you're doing drainage plans, etc., drainage plans are done on a macro level, generally speaking, and the government, being in charge of works, may have an entire plan that they want to execute. However, as I always say, people don't act on what you tell them. They act on incentive. If my home is flooding, I could burst a wall in a riverbank to stop my home from flooding. You tell me, don't burst the wall because that's not the right thing to do. But my home is flooding and you aren't preventing the floods in my home. Can you reasonably expect me to not do it? Here's the next story that follows that up. Woodland residents defy ministry warning, continue to fix riverbank. Of course. Listen, I understand those that say they support the government, but if I were a Woodland resident, if I lived in Woodland, and if you listen to what they're talking about, the residents say they know their area. They're saying they know their area. They're not just doing things randomly. They have a plan. If I was a Woodland resident, I was defying the government too. Because as it stands, the government doesn't care about the individual. You could die, and next month the government would come, do their drainage works, and they would make a video celebrating their drainage works while your body is done gone. They don't care about the individual. You have to see about the individual. And you see, this is why, as the government, your aim is. Let me dial back to explain something I thought I've had before. Police don't actually, to me, majority of what police do isn't stopping the criminals. It's stopping the regular citizens from reacting to the criminals. What would happen in a society if there were no police is that communities would band together, and anyone they think transgressed the law inside their community, they would deal with it as they see fit. That's how humans have done it since time. If you don't have police, it's not that people are just going to let themselves be advantaged, no end. That's what's going to happen. What the police aim to do is provide law and order so that each community doesn't have to have vigilante justice. So it's not so much that the police stop the criminals as much as they make sure that the citizens don't get out of hand in doing what they do. So if the police are failing at their job, what happens is people default to what people do. And therefore, the government's duty is to try to do the job so well that you don't have a society that devolves into lawlessness by people defaulting to what they normally do. And similar is happening in Woodland. People are not going to allow themselves to be drowned out. If you don't want them to tamper with the waterway, you're going to have to fix it in a timely manner. That's just the fact of it. You're either going to have to fix it or get them out of the region. You cannot expect the people to sit down with a tropical storm, possibly hurricane nearing, and just day in, day out, take the floods. Really? Nah. Yeah, positive ask.
My question might be, well, I don't know me by now, but in the event, let's say this will create more flooding for somebody else, or just running water from their yard into somebody else's yard. The same government, the same people going to say, I want flood relief, or I want money to fix my place, when the government is saying, guys, at least let's see what the macro plan is like. Because you secure your yard, where your nearby yard flooding now increased by 6 inches, or by how many ever inches. And the government, both people go blame the government. See, if you tell me they attempted to go to the government with a plan and it was rejected and they do what they want, no problem.
But that's I didn't read through. I didn't read through the entirety of the article, but they itemized their plan. They spoke to their counselor. They're asking the government to come and do something. The government is saying that in due time, we're going to come and it's going to be solved and etc. And I understand what you're saying, but if you're thinking about this realistically, if you are in a boat that is sinking, and you could plug it, you could plug it with mercury, something that would poison the seawater. But other than that, it would sink and you would drown. Would you plug it with the material that would harm the seawater? Yes, it would harm the seawater to prevent you from drowning. Of course you would. Of course you would. That's the nature of it. I've seen people make this argument, for example, with climate change. If you want to fix the environmental disasters, the best thing you could do is get people to be the wealthiest they can. Yes, I heard and spoke about that at length, Massimo, at the beginning. At length.
Yeah, but these are reasons why I ask some of these things, because when I hear some of these complaints, I have no problem with following the procedure. If the procedures fail and take matters into your own hands, I don't have a problem. That is why I advocate for making FUS a little more easier or more accessible. Because sometimes when you follow the process, it leads you to more problems. But it's good to attempt to follow the process. Try the system and see.
But those people, Woodland, has historically been flooded time and time again.
Yes.
It's not the first time.
Correct.
Exactly. So the thing is, positive radiation is, I agree. No, I am radical, so I really believe in this, right? Is if your central government playing bad man and don't want to come and fix the thing because they have all the power, listen. If the people say say, listen, but we could band together and fix it and do this at a local level. You'll get your local government quicker and faster if the people start doing things. Listen, listen. Do people understand why? Do people understand why some businesses fix things that's supposed to be fixed by the government? Because they want better for, they want either their property value or their business to have better like customers and all that good stuff. Like I saw businesses fix roads.
Many times.
I saw businesses fix all type of things, cut grass, all that, make pretty up the environment because they want their business to flourish. Listen, you want people to decentralize the government, let them fix their own things so they could say, let me bring it down to a local level. That's how it works for me. That's how I think.
I agree. And that's regularly what I say to you. Bring things down to a local level. And as I said, I understand why this is something that should possibly be at a higher level. But to me, the solution to that is you must send an emergency engineer out there. Send an engineer. Let your engineer guide them or learn from them possibly, because maybe the woodland residents may be more right about this than the government. I am not assuming that the government understands how to solve these flooding problems, because I've seen some of the solutions they've done, and some of them, to put it bluntly, are asinine. They make no sense. Widening rivers, straightening rivers into narrow bridges and choke points. Obviously, you're going to send the flood from one point to just a further point downstream. And as I've always said, the ultimate end of that is into the Gulf of Paria. You cannot send out large volumes of high velocity water into the Gulf of Paria. It is a leeward gulf. It is meant to be a constructive coast. You do not want to change that. You would change our ecology like that. So I'm not even assuming they and the government must understand how to fix it. And this is not the first time we've seen something like this. I've heard the government before say that you shouldn't pave roads. You should, if you have extra concrete, don't put it in the road, while your road could be falling apart. But no, don't fix that. We will come and fix it. Like, that's not reasonable.
Next question, Nathan. There's a possibility that woodlands probably produced their very own hydro engineer. Because growing up in an environment where it's flood all the time, the person or the parents might decide, you know what, I'm sending you to go and do some training in geology. And possibly they may have a doctorate in geology, and they probably mess with their own community and figure out their own problems. Because this could happen sometimes. Homegrown engineers, in some cases, not all cases, are the best option because you live the reality. Remember, if I'm a homegrown engineer and I make a change now, my house will flood too because I'm living in the area. Yeah. I'm feeling the effects of it. So sometimes homegrown engineers are better than store-bought ones.
Right, and that's exactly it right now. In woodlands, the people of the neighborhood are the ones that are coming together and saying, well, what is going on here? We cannot continue with it. We know how to fix it and we are going to fix it. And the government could tell us, no, you're not allowed to fix it. Please stop. No, don't fix it. And they could keep saying that. We're still going to go ahead and fix it. And, like, I can't blame residents for that, really. I can't.
Well, Nathan, on that basis, the people of the Covert Tabakita Paro area, you all need to find some way to fix their roads. The Lord have mercy upon me all the days of my life. All I start to pay for the whole road, please.
You see, when I was telling you all, you're watching Tobago roads and you think Tobago is being specially victimized, bro. It's not Tobago ain't special like that. You ain't see Central Roads yet, and you went Cuba, so that means you probably pass on that Camden Road. Woo! There are potholes in that road. You could see Australia through some of those potholes, you know.
No, you all need to go down the Library Road to Point Fountain and tell me about roads. Listen, South Road is notorious for being the worst in the country. And here's the thing. I live in Princestown, and I live close to the regional corporation in Princestown. I literally can see from where I live in. And every morning, when the workers come to work, all the men sit down. They have a swing close by. All the men sit down on the swing, and all the men sit down. No work being done. Right now, we have a drain that needs fixing some years now. Nobody comes tools to fix the drain, but the men liming. The men talking, all talk. To fix it, nothing. You know what the people do? You know what the people of the community do? Listen, we need to fix it. Men chip up their money, then fix it. And we talking about a regional corporation here. We talking about where the local government supposed to be at. And I regularly talk about the fact that in order to have your local government reform you want, you obviously have to kill the mentality of the people that obviously occupy this space. Because we can't have a local government that still want to act like a central government and do the people that kind of wildness. So it's to me it's like, oh God, you ain't coming to fix my thing, but you're getting paid. You're sitting down on your minimum wage, or you're more than minimum wage, and I'm saying you're sitting down.
They don't make minimum wage, brother.
I know they don't make
Regional corp workers make good pay. I know a couple. They make good money.
When you're working for 2 hours, you must make good pay. You're literally getting like $200 $100 an hour.
I know some workers out there who on the clock for the regional corp, but they have a building crew. They building houses. So they doing 2 jobs at the same time. They on the clock making regional corp, but they building a flats down in the back. Side business like rain. And you see, this is the kind of thing where I forgot his name, the guy that comes on and speaks very fluently, but he is a PNM apologist. Things like that are the things that I find that dishonest when sometimes they speak. When we obviously in this country know our government spends a lot of wasteful money. And then to turn and tell me that the problem is we don't have enough money. So what we need to do is come to me, and I do not collect money from the government. I am not a regional corporation worker. If I go on my job and I sit down and do nothing, I get nothing. So I go and earn what I make. And then you're coming to me to take more of what I'm earning to tell me you have to pay these and increase. And those guys are marching down in Faisabad telling me that 4% is not enough. 4% is not enough. And that increase must come from my money. How is that justifiable? Yeah, listening?
No, but Nathan, next thing I've observed, because sometimes there are persons in positions in these places that are willing to work. But when you alone do the work, you alone carry the weight of the whole shift, and anything go wrong, you alone is dead.
Well,
you alone are being persecuted.
we spoke about that quite a few times positive, where we spoke about the incentive structure of the public service, and that doesn't exclude my point. That proves my point. It says that this service that requires a large amount of money gives an inefficient output. This service has an incentive structure that incentivizes people, even people who want to work. It incentivizes you not to work. I remember as I've said before, I've worked in construction. You see, this regional corporation, these people could make you blow a fuse. We were building an entire house. A building, not a house, a building. Glass surrounding, all of that was done. 50 feet of drain. 12 people built in that time to finish a whole glass building. 50 feet of box drain. And when you look at these people work, if you are someone who is accustomed to an honest day's work, you're like, this is ridiculous. They would come on a construction job site, and one is a carpenter, and he is not going to do anything other than deal with wood for the day. If there's one piece of wood to cut today, and that's all, he's going to cut one piece of wood, and that's it. They have a water carrier on their team. This is not 1940. People have bottled waters in their pocket. They have a lady working as the water carrier. Doing what? Collecting a salary. Of course she getting paid. What do you mean if she getting paid?
What kind of water do like to mix water?
No. Drinking water.
What?
They have a laborer. They have laborers. Laborers do the mixing. They have a mason. The mason would do only block laying. Nothing outside of my job spec. So here's what would happen. The carpenter come and cut a piece of wood. But then he make a turn because he have nothing to do. The mason now needs another piece of wood to continue what he's doing. They have to wait for the carpenter to come back because the mason is not going to cut the one piece of wood.
That makes no sense.
And I am paying for this. Listen. When you work every day and you have to go and watch that, you want to do violence. Scafty, you're saying?
No, unfortunately, it's a system. But it's not just about incentive to make people motivated. It is a cultural thing.
Correct.
It comes from society itself to be positive, to want to achieve more and to improve themselves. But unfortunately, we suffer from Dutch disease where the minimum is the best.
Yep.
The minimum we could do, that is achievement in life. So it's not really about incentive, about money and better treatment. It comes from within. Taking pride in whatever you do and your job, and it transforms in all aspects of life. Unfortunately, we haven't reached that stage as yet.
Correct. And as you said, the Dutch disease, we have oil. So we are a wealthy nation. Like some people talk like our wealth is gone. That's not true. We live in Trinidad. If you ever go other places, we are still a very wealthy nation. And because of that, I always look at this. You could live in Trinidad comfortably without working a single day in your life, you know.
That's true.
There are many people like that. I know many people that don't have a job, but they aren't vagrants, they aren't struggling, they aren't hungry. They wake up in the walk, rub the chest, so walk out the road, go by auntie and eat breakfast, then come in by the brethren and eat lunch, then go over in the savannah and do a cook with Trinidad nice. So many people have that kind of attitude, and then we have Tobago, and I'm sorry to hit you all that Tobago specifically, but Tobago to me has that worse than Trinidad because many people in Tobago are employed by the THA in less than 8 hours per day jobs. So Tobago seems to have, many people don't wake up that kind of prompt, hectic kind of thing. And then by the time half day, lots of people done crawling back in from work and, just chilling and relaxing, blagging. Around?
Very nice.
Around?
About 8 o'clock, you go back in the house.
You're not wrong, because the thing is, like the thing is, Nathan, is that do happen, and we regularly make jokes on the ground level about the broke men always seem to have money to go a party, always seem to have money to buy clothes, and every week is a good party. But I mean, I don't think that's necessarily unique to Trinidad and Tobago. Like I've heard stories of people in America and Canada, they don't even have a job. That Section 8 giving them well-livable money.
Yeah.
They do work.
But you see, in the United States, for one, that culture is sectioned off in a certain section of the society. It's nearly like they cordon off that sector. It's very unfortunate that one demographic seems to predominantly make up the sector. But that sector is kind of cordoned off, and you see the result of it. You see the result of it where you could get resources from doing anything. You can make children, and those children would be cared for in emergency level. You're not going to struggle to feed the child and to get emergency level of stuff for the child. So there's no real consequence for bad actions, and I think that's a bad thing, to be honest. I think you should be.
I want to go here. One of the things I learned, when it was explained to me, I was shocked by it. I heard both Member of Parliament for one of the two areas in Tobago, as well as several assemblymen speak to the problem. When you look at the design of CPAP and URP programs, where they were aimed at what they were targeted to do and what they have become now, you realize it's two totally different programs. And that is where I believe the problem lies. The program were mainly targeted at single parent mothers or persons who had disabilities and who are unable to work a full 8-hour job. It has now become a goal for some Tobagonians to have these types of jobs. And I heard both sides. I want to hear me clearly. Both sides speak to the same problem. My question is why both of them can't meet and figure out ways to clean up the system.
The problem is... Go ahead, Ronnie. Go ahead.
Because they would have to fire people.
Correct.
And neither side wants to fire people.
Correct.
They look bad.
Correct.
Because then you ain't going back there.
That's at the end of the day, that's the problem. You're going to have to fire people. And as I regularly say, that's why I have to rate Robbie. He was one of the few politicians that seemed like they were willing to do that. To actually do it.
One thing. If my memory serves me
Yes. But nonetheless, I don't think that shows negative on his legacy. I think that's still positive on his legacy. So if in death, like if you were to look back on your life from death and see that, okay, I could have had the choice of being one term but being able to actually effect change and live up to an ideal, or maybe I could have had 3 terms and be a corrupt nothing. Which would you prefer in terms of your legacy? To me, I know which one I would prefer in terms of my legacy. And also in that, what you're saying there is CPAP and URP were not supposed to be the same thing. CPAP and URP now it's nearly indistinguishable. URP is a 10 days. You get 10 days, 1 fortnight, 2 5-day weeks they give you to work, and they give you a short period to work in the morning because you're supposed to go and find a job in the fortnight. It's supposed to hold you over, so you get a 10 days to go and find a job, and you're not supposed to get a 10 days again. But how are people just unemployment relief program, and you are employed by the unemployment relief program? This does not make sense.
That's what's supposed to be on paper, that the philosophy behind it. And they will literally explain it and break it down to you on paper, but in execution that doesn't happen. Because I am thinking you are PNC people are supposed to give you skills, right?
Just now, Gerard. Just now, I'm positive. Gerard, it could only hold 4 people. That's why I can't let you in. So if you want to be let in, you could ask one of them if they're willing to come down. Go ahead, positive.
Yes, and this is what I'm saying. When I look at the program, unfortunately, from where I see some of these things very often. And I'm thinking, when you look at some of the skills here, why these guys not forming companies? Contractors should be ready to grab up some of these CPAP workers when they have projects and initiatives happening. Because they're supposed to be providing them with some of these skills.
But positive.
You see that happening.
Positive. Employers have been complaining. You could get articles about this since the programs have existed. They've been complaining that the CPAP and URP programs take away their workers, because how am I? It's like the minimum wage argument. How am I going to now get someone to come and work in my woodwork shop? Okay, I'm doing joinery. I want someone to come and listen to noise. Machines working whole day, sweeping up wood filings, learning a relatively difficult job, and I'm going to pay them $150 to start. And they can make that $150 in the morning working CPAP and then go on the block for the rest of the day. How am I going to get them to come to my job? And this is what many employers were saying. By the government creating the places like CPAP and URP in hopes of help, they actually hindered some economic movement. So employers are struggling to employ lower level workers now. And that's where some of the immigrants are coming in.
That is true. That is true. Not only that,
Iran.
There's 4 hours. 4 hours is a day work for most people. And they can't work beyond that.
Oh, was boy, really jig. What kind of job? Or they don't want to send me some kind of like, you know?
No. 4 hours of productivity, I ain't said to play whole you're not 8 hours, you know.
No, but he said I work with a company. I work with a company that will tell you point blank plain when they see teach employee the application form, they will push it to the side. You only are selected after the big persons who never worked before or work in private sector operations because they have a very bad record with working with even though the company like to exploit workers, but I'm saying that's the reality because they are not known to be productive individuals.
Exactly. It's true.
Because I compound by I always a demand for a pay increase. But when productivity and pay does not go hand in hand, it leads to a lot of negative economic or commerce or productivity negativity, where everybody want pay, an increase on pay or a bonus, but yet you're not doing your part for that.
Correct.
It's supposed to disappear.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we have.
Allow me to add, and the people that are actually working, and the people that are actually doing the work and deserve the increases and the promotion, guess what? They're not getting it.
No, let me say this.
At the same time, to be fair, right? It's if you're making let's say a table, it's not just one person making a table, there's numerous people coming together. So how could you know who is who?
But to answer to positive, he said, well, they have good people, right? Much like the politicians who don't want to fire people for fear of looking bad. Good employees don't stand up in situations for fear of being treated badly. So are they just as bad? Because you don't want to stand up and say, look, this one, you need to stop coming in 9 o'clock and having breakfast and taking your phone off the hook. And all kind of shit.
I wouldn't put it on the employee. I wouldn't put that on the employee unless the employee is the supervisor and that's their job. If that's your coworker, that's not your job to supervise them and daddy them and police them. That's not your job. But if it is your job, then it is your job and it is on you. So I'll say if that's the case, then you should push that. But
you're supposed to be able to talk to your colleagues.
No, I don't think in our system that might be an ideal setup. I don't think you may want to drain brain, trust me. Instead of brain drain brains. So what you're saying, Trinidadians not thinking?
Unfortunately, it boils down to the individual.
Yes, it does.
And it really starts from your mental, how you see things in life and how you're trained or how you're grown up to be that. And giving somebody just more money doesn't make them better.
No, it doesn't.
And it comes back again with pay increase and minimum wage or whatever. We look at the bigger picture. If we want to be an exported company and we look at the factors of production, what makes us, what gives us the competitive advantage. And if our wages are high but our productivity are low, no matter what we do, we would never able to really reap our true potential. We are shooting ourselves on our foot.
Yeah, and when we were speaking about the unions earlier, in a lot of Trinidadian unions, you regularly hear talk about pay increase and we over, but you almost never hear talk about increasing the efficiency of the work, increasing the quality of the work.
Security.
And
they never talk about that.
They never do. And I think in the Western world on a whole, and I'll blame the United States and their fiat money all over the world for some of that, but we've separated money from value and resources. So many people don't have a good understanding of the relationship between money and value. So people kind of think that money money in itself is a value that the government makes, and the government is daddy, and the government gives out an allowance of money for the day. And if the government gives an allowance to George, and George gets $20, the government gave an allowance to me $10, then it's unfair. I need to get $20 like George. But it's not like that. Money is just the representative of the value in the system, the value that already exists in the system. Money is the representative of that value. So if George is out there creating more value into the system, he is supposed to be receiving more money to be able to exchange to show that he has created more value. That's the aim of it. But here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have separated that greatly. So when every year you hear public servants talk about we need an increase, why? Like, what makes you expect that increase? Like, an increase to me is supposed to happen if there's something that increased your efficiency. We're now producing more resources. Okay, grand. Then you get your increase. But if we are producing less resources, on what basis can you expect an increase? Well, public servant is due an increase every year now. What? Because you have separated the idea of money from the idea of worth and value. But folks, it's 11:27. We're on the closing realm here, on the closing round. So Gerard, you get in. All of y'all can make a closing statement. Who wanna start?
Yeah, I really want to start this back and I'm probably trying to go in all the bed. No, let the man had a winning bet, but let me say this back and I keep all it up. But Nathan, and this is why the idea of fiat being tied to a resource like gold was a thing, because gold was valuable. Like, and this is why we had bartering systems way before time and memorial. That a man could give a man 2 sheep and collect something of the worth of 2 sheep, and that also incentivizes the man with 2 sheep to keep growing sheep. Yes. And keep the land. The land was also a resource. So the thing about it is, yes, I think in the Western world we have definitely separated money from value, because obviously America has separated the value of the dollar from what it used to exist on. So fiat is just what we think is the value rather than the goods and services of the society. Right. And that's crazy to me, but that's how it is.
All right. Just now, before the next person goes, hey Nathan Knight, what do you think about Trumpism? Hi from Texas. I don't know what you mean totally by Trumpism. I understand why Trump is as popular as he is, because he seems to stand opposed to the elitism, globalism that seems to be festering all around the world, and many people don't like that. So I fully understand why he's there, and he's a product of his opponent. So he's a creation of Barack Obama. You had that overly produced, well presented, with all of the press on his side and the entirety of the global system seeming to be moving in his favor. You had that one, and people recognize it. There are people who, you might be one who bought into the Obama dream and believe that Obama did nothing ever wrong, but there are people who recognize, wait, this guy wasn't necessarily perfect, but they were trying to give me a certain, and there was a revolt against it, and that's where Trump came from. So that's what I think about Trumpism. Who's next? Gerard, you talking, bro?
Okay, I'll go. Well, thinking about all the minimum wage and productivity, and I will say it again, for that change to happen, you have to step forward personally and move to that, as well as try to encourage others to be more productive.
Sorry. Ronnie go now. Gerard look like he want to drop a bombshell before. So go now.
Yes. So basically, that's what I was trying to say. You need to encourage others to be more productive like yourself. Because you're not owed anything in life. You work for what you have, and you have what you.
Go ahead.
You're not. Nobody's required to give you anything, and a living wage is not a real thing.
No, it's not.
A minimum wage is not a real thing.
Minimum wage is zero.
You put out there is the value put out there, and best believe you can create more value. As much as a lot of my workers and stuff like to say, well, if they fire public service and they fire PJ workers, like what going to happen? Crime going to go up? No, they'll become innovative and they'll find ways to make money. Once crime does continue, meaning criminals are caught and punished in a timely manner.
Correct.
People would find something else to do. So it should never be the alternative to employment is crime. Let's move away from that, please, and become more patriotic people.
I fully agree with that. The idea that, boy, if I don't get a job, it's crime. Then in a sense, you're extorting the government. You're telling the government, pay me, or otherwise I would start to rob people. That's extortion. John, let me hear the bombshell, bro.
Well, we got several bombshells, but let me stay on this particular topic, but give it another slant. There is a storm that not even coming, that is on us already. And that storm is that you have a global move away from human beings being a factor of production.
Yes.
And you have a Trinidad and Tobago. I'm a business consultant. 90% of the time I go into an organization and I ask the most basic questions about AI. People don't even know it exists. So we are in a situation where every element of life, every element of business, every element of production can be mechanized, can be automated. And we have not only a Trinidad and Tobago, but a region full of, so forget the employees for a second, organizations. Whether we're talking about state entities, we're talking about government ministries, and very scary, we're talking about private sector. The world is changing at breakneck speed, and we're not even up on it. The problem is going to arise where the lazy organizations and the lazy leadership of organizations is creating a situation where workers have to innovate as a matter of survival. I'm talking about a 3 to 5 year horizon. We don't wake up and the world is a different place. And our organizations, state and otherwise, and our private sector organizations, not even noticing what happened. It's happening before our eyes and under our noses. So it's beyond, we had to encourage other people to be productive or be more productive ourselves. The heart of the issue at this point is, as a whole country, as a workforce, as an industry, as a society, we need to evolve now because the rules of the world are changing. And the people who show up late, I don't know what your future going to look like. So I just sticking with this particular trend. At the time I had another trend, but that's the bombshell I wanted to drop for now.
Gerard, as Ronnie said, Thursday is the day where we come. We just talk. We're just talking about no specific news topics or anything like that. So Thursday, if you're around, bro, jump in. We'd hear all of the bombshells then. Ren says you're trying to get a work and none how you can a man and none how and none. How can a man provide for his family? What should he do? Bro, if you're talking about you in that situation, to me, then you're not desperate enough. Like, think about what mankind is, where we came from, what mankind has been doing for eons. There were families, there didn't exist a structure where you could go and look for employment from someone else. Go down by the riverbank and plant. If it is like you're so desperate, there's nothing else to do. You could go down by the riverbank and plant. and grow something and sell it in the market, or you go down by a construction site and you look for a job. Like, I am oftentimes a little labored to believe, especially young healthy males in Trinidad actually cannot find a job. I am labored to believe that oftentimes, because there are lots of jobs in and around Trinidad and Tobago. And as Jared was talking about with the AI, that's a very important part where many things may be moving outside of the human realm. Interestingly enough, AI may take the place of much of the C-suite laptop class jobs where you must get your bachelor's degree to get it. But many of the trade jobs, AI is not going to mix concrete. AI is not going to lay blocks.
Wait, what you saying?
AI is not going to mix concrete.
Nathan, you 3D printed a house in 2 days.
Yes, you can 3D print a house, but then you're going to have a house made out of the plastic material that they use for 3D printers. There would always be people. Man.
If we're talking about what's going on in technology right now, what's going on is they are literal house printers, a print house in concrete and PVC and wire and all that kind of thing.
Not concrete. There's no 3D printer that prints in concrete. There's none.
Oh yeah?
None.
I will WhatsApp you some brands that you can buy right now.
You'd have to WhatsApp me some.
Yes, I will.
Concrete as in aggregate and limestone?
Yes, sir.
You'd have to WhatsApp me that. You'd have to WhatsApp me that for me to see it.
Yes, sir. Things you can buy now. Things in use now. How about £1 million?
£1 million?
About that.
I'd have to see that. It's mixing the concrete and building the house on its own.
You release this onto a site. It literally prints the house. So you essentially feed it concrete, you have feed it different materials, and you leave it almost on autopilot. 2 people with development and a month.
So you feed it the material and it maps out the house basically. So it takes the place of all the laborers on the site.
Correct. And this is 3 years ago technology. This is not 2023 technology.
So when you mean print in that term, there are arms that drop the blocks and stuff.
They don't do blocks. They print.
Oh right. Oh right. All printed. Right. Okay. Very interesting. But to me, nonetheless, I still stand by what I say, and we'll see in the future, we will see. But I still stand by what I say, that by and large, trade jobs will never go obsolete. I am willing to put that down there, and Gerard, we'll come back to this statement in 5 years and see, because we've had technological advances before. And obviously none to the level of AI, but the nature of many of the trades is they're that way because it has to do with the demand of what people want. So there are still carpenters, not because they aren't better materials than wood, but because people like wood handled by human hands put into a shape. So the robot plaster wall, yes, I have seen the robot plaster wall. I know there are robots to do all of those things, but most of those robots are just so prohibitively expensive that you would just pay somebody to do it, by and large. The robots that do it. But if there's a printer printing the entire thing, that would be very interesting. That would... Send me that, Gerard. Send me that. And, folks...
Yeah.
That's all we have for now. This was nice. Gerard, you really nearly pulled me into our next set of talk here and pulled me late, you know. Folks, it was nice. This...
I make 2 o'clock in the morning.
And then I would not make to wake up in the morning. That is the problem. I would not make to wake. People, it was nice. This has been the Mindful Live. As usual, I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you all for joining in. I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Tomorrow is Tobago. Listen, I had to hold back myself from talking Tobago news today to tell you the amount of Tobago news it have. Tobago is overflowing with news and bacchanal these days. Listen! Woo! Tomorrow will be a night. Folks, until then, I hope you all were educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you guys again tomorrow. Peace! Laters! Hold it down.